Hey y'all, it's Nancy the Handy Scandy. Welcome back for another crafty venture. And as mentioned previously, I'm going to be showing how I colored up this snowman image to effectively coordinate with the background that I made. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. Hey guys, so I have been making a huge, beautiful mess. And I thought I would come in and show another way how I will match my coloring process to my backgrounds. So I have just literally been playing. So I've been making swatches with the inks. I've got piles here. So I've got my Hydrus set 1 inks still out, and I'm playing, and I just was following Anna White's lead and just making swatches, adding or allowing the brush to run out of ink or paint, and then adding different intensities of paint. And then over here I'm kind of mixing and matching. I went from the kind of yellowy orange, the one that's called Gambogi, and then I went down to the purple and kind of mixed. Now I am new at this. I've never done this before, so my gradients are not very good. But here I went from the purple to the green, and then here I tried to do the yellow to the green, and it's just a bunch of different stuff. And then this was just shades. If you're looking in the background here, it's just my brush was full of really watered down paint, and I got 4 or 5 strokes before I refilled it. But then I wanted to come back in and kind of do a plaid. It ended up being more of a grid than a plaid. I could make it into a plaid, but I'm going to stop. But then I decided I wanted to play with my new stamps from Tim Holtz as well. So I put some of the watercolor paint on here. I brushed it on, and then I sprayed it, and then I stamped it on. And then I did something similar here, where I was again just playing with the yellow, and then I was adding, different intensities of the purple. And then I came in with both of these stamps, got ink on them and stamped them in brown and in purple. And it's such a neat effect. And then I decided, because I also have my my crackle paste here, that I wanted to see if I could put watercolor into a crackle paste and if it would still crackle. Well, it definitely colored the paste, and I love the way it colored it. This was my first iteration. I don't see any crackle in there at all. And the stencil that I used is in the kitchen. I just washed it, so I can't show it to you, but it looks just like that. This is the same one. I only just put it through a little bit. But when I made this first colored paste, I took just a little bit of that green, and again, it's called phthalo green, and I took just a little bit of it, but there's so much of the paste that it became more of this kind of sagey, minty, light teal. I don't know, it just depends on how the light hits it and how your eye sees it, I guess. But I went back in and I added some water to these other piles of green, and I just mixed them all up, and I had paste on my palette knife, and I just put the watercolor right into the paste, and then I mixed it up some more, and I got this more intense kind of olivey green. But here you can see where the stencil still had some of this iteration on there, and while the stencil was still on there, I just flicked the more intense watercolor. So that's how we got this one. And then this one, I just took the stencil off of this, flipped it upside down on that, and then I printed that. And then that's literally where I stopped before I went to go eat dinner. But before I started adding all of this all the stenciling and the stamping and the painting of extra lines, I added the splatter, and that was last night. So I did these stripy swatchy guys last night, and then I did the splatter just because I thought it was fun, and I still had a bunch of paint left over, and I still do, and I won't waste that. I'll add water to it and keep rehydrating it and use it. But for now, I am going to pause the video, clean up my mess, and then we will figure out which stamp or image we're going to use for another snowman No, it's not snowmen in January. What are we in now? For the love of snowmen. And then I'll show how I would color him up to coordinate and or match with one of these backgrounds that I've just been playing with today. So give me just a minute and we'll get started again. Alrighty, so for the sake of time, I have edited this portion and sped it up quite fast, actually, only because we would literally be here for an hour and a half and we're not going to do that. So right now I'm deciding which snowman image I want to use. I had those couple of stamps, and then these are the images that Miss Tina sent me, Tina from Crafty Bean, and I'm looking through them to see which one I want to use. I settle on this little country bumpkin guy. I think he's adorable, and when I make my decisions, I usually make them pretty quickly. This is one area in my life where I do not overthink. I mean, there's no right or wrong. So if I don't use something on this round, it will be used. And that's why my stash is so large, because I keep things because I know that I'll use them. So process of elimination was pretty quick to make or to choose which background. Now it's the same thing, process of elimination to choose which tag dies I'm going to use. So I pull out the ones that I'm interested in. I do some auditioning, trial and error. And if I don't like it, I don't like it. Again, there's no right or wrong. There's no judgment. I just make my decisions quickly. And when I see the right one, I know it's the right one. And so here we are settling on the All in Create one. I can't remember the name of the die set, but All in Create has a lot of fun, kind of funky stuff. So if you like fun and funky, check them out. So this is watercolor card that I swatched on, so it's pretty thick. So all these little bits and bobs on the sides didn't punch out. So they die cut, but I had to punch them out with my little pokey tool. So I did that for the swatch layer, and I also did that for the background layer. You can see that kind of yellow ochre up at the top right, and that was pulling out that kind of yellow ochre in the background. And so a couple things as we go. When I'm identifying the colors that I'm going to use to color my image, right? So I just look at the background and see the colors. I mean, it's that easy. So if it's a pink, purple, blue combo, if it's kind of a psychedelic, if it's rainbow, if it's super, super colorful and busy, I will usually use some kind of a neutral to ground it, to give your eye a place to rest. And that's often how I will color my image, but I'll choose a color that I want to feature on my image. So for instance, if my background, that swatched background, were full of all the colors, I would mostly color this guy in black and white. Like his hat would be black, obviously he would be white. I would do his band in whichever color I wanted to pull out. Say I wanted to feature yellow of the rainbow. That's exactly what I would do. So his band would be however I wanted to do it, but it would be in yellows. And his scarf would probably be the same. Now I might choose to pull one more color from the background, but likely if it's super, super busy, I'm not going to. It'll be black and white and a pop of whatever color I choose. In fact, I've been thinking for a couple years about doing a series called Black and White with a Papa, meaning a pop of color, and then each time I would do, a different color, a different shade, a different tone, different tint, different intensity, all those things, all those factors come into play. So on this particular background, obviously we've got the yellow and the purple and the green, but then there's the colors in between, because the yellow and the green, what you see on the screen, they just kind of look black. They're not. In person, you can tell that they're purple and green. I said yellow and green. The yellow looks yellow. It's kind of an orangey ochre yellow. But yeah, so the purple and the green look almost like black. They are not, but that's how they look. So I am choosing to pull out the yellow to be my featured color because it stands out as its own color. So I want to highlight that, because if I use purple and it's so dark on my background that it looks black, you don't really know where the purple's coming from. Same with the green. And the green that I end up using, you'll see, is more of a brighter green. And I did that because where the green was swatched in other places, you can tell that it's actually a very vibrant green. I just used both of them in such an intense, condensed way that the colors just appear black. So, at least on camera they do. So anyway, I digress. Again, I'm using the yellow ochres, the kind of yellowy orange, and they have a hint of red to make them a brown, which is where the orange comes from as well, because yellow and red make orange. So, sorry, always needing my drink of water. Then I found a variety of browns as well that kind of coordinate with the brown that the purple and the yellow make. So they don't necessarily match. And that's another thing, is I don't try to match. If the colors happen to match, great, right? That's great. But I look to coordinate more than I look to match. And, you know, that might be putting a pink image on a blue background because pink and blue coordinate. But to do that, the word effectively is in my title, right? To effectively put a pink image on a blue background, I would use some other pattern paper or a gel plate print or whatever you have that has both of those colors on it. And that is what will marry the pink image with the blue background. Does that make sense? Please, guys, as I go along, obviously this isn't live and so there's not give and take in the conversation, but I want to hear back from you. If what I'm saying doesn't make sense, if it creates more questions for you, drop them in the comment section, okay? So again, for this particular image, I chose a color that I wanted to feature on my snowman. And again, that's that kind of yellow ochre. I believe it was called, the name of the yellow was called Gamboge. It's not called yellow ochre. There is an actual yellow ochre, but not on this round. And also think about contrast, right? Because black and white, huge contrast, huge contrast. Now, if I had gone with black and gray instead of black and white, still contrast, and depending on the intensity of the black and the gray, there could be more contrast or less contrast. It could be a really dark gray that is almost a black, or a really gray black that is almost a gray. And then they would look like, well, they just coordinate really well, versus contrast. And contrast is still coordination, but it's different. And, you know, this isn't color school. I'm not a color theorist. I'm just going by the little bit of color theory that I do know and my gut, to be honest. And I know that not everybody has gut instinct for color, and I totally get that. And that's why we're here today, right? So I'm sharing with you guys what my gut tells me, coupled with the little bit of color theory that I know. And if you want to learn color theory, there are classes online. There are people who teach it in their videos. I would just make sure that if it's somebody teaching color theory, that they have some type of authority. You know what I mean? Because anybody can get on YouTube and teach anything they want to, but do they actually have the authority to teach that topic? You decide that, right? You decide that. So back to the coloring. Again, the browns on the hat were chosen to coordinate with the brown that was created with the purple and the yellow on the swatch. So obviously there's a lot of red in the browns, there's a lot of the yellow tones in the brown, and there's a lot of red in the yellow as well. So if you'll look at the colors I have on the desk, I have a couple yellows, but I also have an orange, and I have 2 red browns. So that's the regular orange in my hand, and then on the left there's a very red orange, and then there I just picked up that kind of reddy brown. And those colors together, right, I layer them again and again and again, and I'm adding the darker colors to where the hat is bent to give it that dimension. And colored pencil, just by its nature, gives you a lot of texture. So here I'm going to color up the snowman, and you can use whatever color you want to do your snowman. Here I've chosen a very, very soft blue, but you could use grays. You could use a soft purple, a soft green, a soft pink. You can use just, obviously, it's a snowman, right? So whatever color you want to use to make your shadows, you want it to be very pale, because when you see a snowman, it has shadows, and they could be different tones, different hues, I guess would be the word I'm looking for. Different colors, basically. A hue is a color. And you know, it depends on the lighting, it depends on the location of the snowman, it depends on any number of things. So again, there's no right or wrong. It's your image, you color it the way you want. But whatever color you choose, use it sparingly. Use it where the shadows would actually be. And I'm not usually too worried about that kind of thing, but that's what makes sense. That's what makes your images pop. Think about where the shadows would be. You see the folds on the hat, you know it's going to be darker where the fabric is bent. You know it's going to be darker at the base of the hat where the band is and where the brim meets the base. You know it's going to be darker on either side of that little heart because it's prominent and standing off of the scarf, and so there'll be shadows around it. So I'm hoping that makes sense. And again, there are plenty of other teachers that have much more authority in teaching this kind of thing than I do, and I usually don't think of my videos as tutorials because I just don't feel like I have authority to teach. My videos are more process videos, like this is my process. And I guess that's the same here. This is my coloring process. This is how I make my decisions. But I don't spend a whole lot of time pondering much. I really just pull out a couple. I swatch all the time, right? Like you can see at the top right of my paper there, my the paper that the image is stamped out on. I've got a little swatch mark. I just wanted to make sure that the color was what I was looking for. And usually I do that with a lot of different colors, but these just happen to work out really well. And I kind of swatched them as I went and made my decisions. But again, there's not a lot of hesitation. And if I do get to a point where I have some type of hesitation or I'm uncertain, then I'll usually walk away, whether that's just to go to the bathroom, whether that's to stop the project for the day. Maybe I need to come back with new eyes after some sleep. It just depends. It just depends. But for me, again, figuring out which colors you want to use based on your background. Are you going to try to match? Are you going to try to coordinate? Are you going to contrast? Are you going to do a little bit of all of it? When I try to decide which color I want to feature on my image, and again, it's not a full-on thought process, it just kind of happens, but I will often take the color that's least represented and I want to make that pop. And I'll use some of the other colors as well, but I will use them to lesser degree, but that helps them to coordinate. And it also helps if they don't match perfectly. Because I know a lot of people want to match, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with matching. That's just not usually my goal. Especially if I just don't have the colors in the medium that I'm trying to use. If I just don't have the colors to match. Sometimes you can blend, sometimes you can layer, sometimes you can combine them together and you know, create your own colors. There are lots of different options. Sorry, that would be my work alarm again. Oh, mercy. And earlier I had mentioned using black and white, using those neutrals to give your eye a place to rest. I do that on a lot of different projects because your eye just needs a place to rest. And it allows you to focus on different elements of your image, different elements of your background, different elements of your overall project. Yeah, it allows the eye to move around and just kind of slow down, go at its own pace, if you will, if that makes sense, and stop and look at whichever part you want to. Don't you love it when there's just something about the project that draws your eye all the way around it? Whether it's intentional or not, your eye is drawn by the coloring, by the structure, by the layout, pardon me, versus it just being like a Jackson Pollock. Your eye's not drawn to any one area unless it's just by happenstance, because it's a bit of chaos. You know, they can be fun for sure, but there's no particular focus. So, and maybe you don't want to focus, and that's okay. But again, someone had asked me how I do what I do, and this is just one of my ways. So you can see, obviously, I'm fussy cutting this guy out, just trying to keep a uniform edge all the way around. I like the white edge. I know a lot of people don't like the white edge. If you don't, you just go ahead and cut right on that black line or right next to it, and then you can come in with like a memento marker, or you can even use a Sharpie and go around the edge, and that will camouflage any areas where you didn't quite cut where you wanted to. And then you can keep going from there, because it removes that white line. A lot of people think the white line is cartoony. So anyway, here I'm just coming back in with a darker pencil. I wanted to add a little more prominence to the shadows and that kind of thing. And now I wanted to add some more to the little bits of charcoal for his mouth. So I've got my, what are they called? My enamel dots liquids. I can't remember what they're called. Okay, it's really time for me to get going. But anyway, I wanted to try to get this out this morning before I leave for work. So I'm using my liquid stuff. Tell me what it's called. It's not Stickles, is it? No, it's not Stickles. Anyway, tell me what it's called downstairs in the comment section. And I'm just using it to give a little bit of dimension and attention to his eyes and his mouth. And I already colored some little pinky cheeks there. And if you'll notice, when I colored him up, I did not use purple. I did not use the purple at all. And that's because the purple just really reads as black. It really does. So I just kind of eliminated it. I could have put it on the heart. I could have made the heart yellow again. I could have made the heart any color I wanted, but I just went with traditional red. And elements like that are basically embellishments, they don't have to coordinate with the rest of the coloring. But here he is all put together. And again, it does not match perfectly. The yellows are pretty close. But as you get up closer and you can see, you know, I'm not a perfect colorist by any means, but I think it just works. And I did the other one with the same concepts. It was just a different image, and I wasn't going to show both. But for now, guys, this is Nancy, the Handy Scandy, and I know this was kind of chaotic, and I apologize, but I thank you for spending this time with me, and until the next time, I'm out.